Hello, everybody. Thomas Donnelly, CTO and co-founder of Amplifier Security. Today, we're talking about how Automox implemented autonomous human risk mitigation within their organization. We have Jason Kikta, who is the CISO and CTO of Automox, and we have Ryan Braunstein, the senior manager of IT and security. So thank you guys for showing up.
Yeah, great to be here, Tom.
Thanks for having us.
So, Jason, we're going to start off with you. A lot of CISOs think that security should be in the background and technology should kind of take care of everything. What is your view on this?
Decades of experience tell us that isn't working, right? 60% of all breaches start with users. So your ultimate weapon is a human firewall, and what I found and heard from my peers is that not involving employees in security activities, it creates this environment of helplessness and disengagement. It doesn't build resiliency in the company because people stop participating in defense. So if the organization treats human risk as inevitable, employees stop believing that their actions matter, right? So engagement drops, you get fewer questions asked, fewer suspicious events reported, less willingness for them to change behavior, which is exactly the opposite of what behavior and really culture that you want to drive as a CISO.
You ask those same CISOs who don't want to involve humans to resolve, human risk or bother people, and you ask them who the biggest risks in the company are, and they'll say the employees. I'm like,
Exactly.
well, are you really giving them a chance, right, to be successful, right? And it's
Right.
so it's kind of like this kind of hypocritical approach to how they're looking at risk and how they're operating within an organization.
There's a duality there that is, I think, hard for people to reconcile if they don't stop and think deliberately about it, right? And this is something that I was fortunate during my time at Cyber Command. I had a lot of time to think deeply and critically about this and sort of change the way that we approach it. Because, yes, on one hand, those users are entropy generators that just sit on your network and they do all manner of wild and odd things. So just like from an IT safety perspective, there's a lot that you have to deal with, and then you throw security on top of it and trying to detect anomalies, and it gets even worse. But on the other hand, they can be some of your very best sensors, right? Some of your very finest sensors, because human intuition and experience and logic, right, is pretty advanced. It can just look at something and say, it doesn't look right. They may not be able to articulate it, but they can sense it. You have to find a way to reconcile that and make them your allies, make them your security partners. And I just think that's somewhere where we have a lot of room to grow as an industry.
So, hey, Jason, just going into that, like that kind of philosophy, what unique role do you think that AI can play then to securing your workforce?
Well, it's this in particular is something that resonates deeply with me being at Automox, because we have always been an automation company, and now we are using AI and really layering it within the product, within our own processes. Because the bottom line is we all want to automate, but automation can block that employee productivity because it doesn't have the full context, right? So AI layered with automation can be a very powerful tool in mitigating risk without blocking that productivity, right? Because it understands context. It can gain more context than straight up deterministic code. So, you might not want to uninstall an unsanctioned application if sales is actually using it, right? We've gone after shadow IT, but it hasn't been find it and kill it. It's been find it, understand it, contextualize it, and in many cases, bring it into the tent or say, hey, did you know we're already buying this over here and we actually have something better? And, okay, well, now and we'll get you a license for that, and we'll stop using the thing that you downloaded randomly, and, we'll improve our education program. But yeah, it all comes back to, typical automation relies on deterministic situations, but human behavior is just not deterministic. So AI, what it really allows you to do is give you that personalized and contextualized intervention with them individually, one-on-one, but do it at scale, right?
If you can
Right.
have a conversation with those end users and be able to kind of understand their intent and what they're trying to do, and then layer that signal back into the automation. Super powerful. So holistically agree with everything you just said. All righty, let's get over to Ryan here. Ryan is on the IT and the security side. What are the challenges you have in identifying who is your riskiest users?
I think one of the biggest challenges around that in general is just like the silos that get created within an organization. We talked about shadow IT. I mean, there's shadow permissions like at organizations. Finding all of those things and doing a level of data normalization is is always like first of mind for me when I'm thinking about that kind of stuff, because it's just how do you quantify that data itself. And so binding devices, permissions, like everything, that whole spider web of like a user's persona to an individual is always like the first step of that. And then obviously you're gonna like target not just like the department itself, like that someone's a software engineer with like admin level access, but the kind of stuff that they do, the risk signals that they send out throughout your SEM. And I think we do a really good job of contextualizing that internally. But like Jason said, we've had our AI journey here, and like we've been, trying our best to, run some of that stuff side by side to see where the accuracy lands on some of it. And on some things, we've got like a strong like 90-10 situation going on. It's a lot of it kind of comes down to like compliance risk, like unpatched vulnerabilities, outdated operating systems, compliance gaps, tie those with, users not really like doing their best to block updates on their devices because they just don't want to be interrupted by the hassle. Um, you start kind of seeing a picture being painted of like, who are my riskiest users? It's the engineers that know how a computer works. It's the engineers who know how to like modify an application that you're not really supposed to be able to modify without admin permissions. You know, you start seeing those kinds of commands getting run on a device, and it gets quantified into your little user map and your user identity, and there you go. Like you've found some of your highest risk users, but if you don't have the right signals, you're not going to see that kind of stuff.
Like, hey, a salesperson that has really no access, or an entry level salesperson, a BDR that maybe not have access into an organization, they fail a phishing test. Maybe it's not as a big a deal as somebody who has database access. They failed phishing test. Every single time we send out a test, they haven't patched their machine in 6 months. It's the combination of these risks that combine to really show you where those perfect storms are.
Yeah.
So, Jason, obviously the AI attack, you're starting to see reports of, agentic AI attack engines that adversaries are using. And this is totally changing the landscape and the conversations around how we secure our endpoints. So can you just talk about that?
The bottom line is that the very best high-end API powered attacks, API AI powered attacks, they can probe, exploit, and propagate at machine speed. And you can do that with automated attacks, certainly, but again, it goes back to the discussion that we were having earlier of contextualizing and being able to adapt on the fly. So the bottom line is that endpoint vulnerabilities can be exploited much more rapidly than ever before because that barrier to entry, that bar is lowered. And this makes your MTTR just critical, right? That is your critical metric to reduce and your exposure that, was compartmentalized and assumed to be in a liability before. It's now become unacceptable. So where you have to really put in the critical thinking is around your SLAs. They need to go from weeks to days or even hours. Again, this was already true for automated attacks for your public-facing systems, and now we're starting to see that on internal systems as well as a security community. So that's really hard to do without blocking productivity. So what we need to do is we need to make it really easy for employees to update their devices, when whether it's patching or configuration, but do it when it makes sense for them, and work with them. So that's why Amplifier and Automox as a combination is so incredibly powerful, right? Because it allows you to achieve that paradigm of, we are going to rapidly adapt to the changing security situation as it evolves out on the internet and as it pertains to our business. But we're also going to do it in a way where we're getting there along with our users, right? Ryan and I have had long talks before about, we need to make our decision cycle and security as fast as possible, because, our time is not the most valuable time. It's our users' time, right? And so the quicker we can make a decision of, yes, this must be patched, this is the risk window that we are comfortable with, that we will, where we will give them, the deadline at the end of that window to be fully patched, or to have that configuration change, or to do that training, read that notice. And then we want to give the maximum amount of that time to the user, right? If we spend 2 days making a decision and it needs to be done by Friday, well, I've now cut their window down to 3 days, right? So if we can get it done Monday morning, first thing, make that decision and give the users the majority of the week. And then again, that Automox amplifier combination, putting the power in their hands, that's the sweet spot.
A lot of people are like, oh, AI attacks are coming. We're going to have to speed up our, like you say, we're going to have to dramatically reduce our MTTR. But if you're updating things daily, every 3 days, the chances of you interrupting people's business is even that much greater. So
Yeah.
having the flexibility to people to schedule it, when they want to do it in the next, within the time window, and just taking them along for the journey and letting them know why we're doing this, right? Like,
Right.
we're getting attacked by AI. The other thing I hear a lot of people talk about here that's pretty interesting is just, obviously critical vulnerabilities are easy to scan for and exploit on the internet. Some of the highs and the mediums that required more complexity with Agentic, it's going to be just as important to basically start looking at reducing the MTTR on these also, because the attacks, the reason why they were mediums is because it would take human intervention and a little
Right.
work to get in. But now with Agentic, people can build Agentic workflows on the attack side that maybe make those mediums a little bit easier, a little bit more exploitable than the criticality or the scoring would indicate.
If you're playing the critical and high game, you're playing for 5 years ago. And the thing is that I learned 2 hard, relevant here lessons working alongside NSA at Fort Meade. And the first is that the very best actors chain together a lot of exploits, right? Like, they'll absolutely take advantage of the criticals, but they'll chain together, 14 mediums in a row and reach their objective. And that'll include some social engineering along the way. So, again, the ability of AI to help to make that more accessible to more actors, not to mention to speed things up for the high-end actors to be able to chain those together, to put in the social engineering piece, like that is just going to get, more as time goes on and as models improve, especially the frontier models. Like, let's say you're listening to this and you're saying, I hear what you're saying, Jason, but I think that point is a year, 2 years, 3 years away. Fine. Right. So if I think a threat is emergent, it's starting to come out, but it's probably not likely to hit me for 6 months or a year, I need to start preparing for that now. The time to learn it is not at the time of, right? When automated mass exploitation of public facing assets across the internet became a thing, I watched the Department of Defense, the US government, Fortune 500 companies, Fortune 50 companies struggle to come up with playbooks to be able to handle that as it was happening. And a lot of them suffered a lot of breaches because they were not ready, right? They should have been doing that sooner, because once it started to become a thing, it became the only thing for a lot of actors for a good long while, because it was a shiny new toy. So you cannot wait until the time of to cover down that risk. You need to start preparing for it now.
So, Ryan, what are the challenges that you have getting, those vulnerabilities patched? that kind of last mile of actually doing the work of patching vulnerabilities?
Yeah, I mean, it's really the human element. It's the communication aspect and letting them know, why we're doing what we're doing. We owe a lot to our users from a security side, and something that has been done really well where we're at is the level of transparency from the security side on like what's going on. If something big happens, we're roping in leaders and all of that, like spider webs down from the top. And then from the other side of it, you know, when we get people in here, like we let them know that we are an open book security department for them. But even that doesn't always get everyone to that last mile. So some people need a little bit more like communication around it to let them know like why we're doing it. We like if we're trying to like push forward patches or something like that for like a critical vulnerability coming up, like say like even in our infrastructure, we need to discuss that with our teams as to why we're doing that. Like the same goes for endpoints. Like I can't tell you the amount of times where, we've been like everyone needs to make sure that, they're not doing funny business around our agent or anything on their device. Um and like adhering to our patch windows because as Jason said, like that is our risk tolerance. Our patching cadence is our risk tolerance. We're really just trying to find new ways to communicate with our user base, and that's frankly one of the things I really like about Amplifier is that it kicks out a message saying this is what's going down on your device. Like we need to make sure that this is taken care of, and we just can't fundamentally talk to every single person here. We do that for like the last mile. You know, every so often, you'll have a device that's drifted a little bit, and we have our IT team reach out. But for the most part, it's more about just communicating with our users.
I'd like to dig into that a little bit about how, the Amplifier plus Automox, can bridge that gap.
I worked with you all a lot around like this cool solution that we did with it. We had a DLP agent on one of our devices that required a user email input put in, and I went to develop a solution around it in SOAR, and it took forever to even like do that, and it wasn't nearly as accurate in SOAR. And when we started leveraging your all's platform and plugging in a lot of these data points where it aggregates all the agents and user identity to it, it was super cool. And we were able to create kind of a parameterized approach to one of our Automox worklets. And I thought that was super cool. Basically, your all's platform identifies a user that doesn't have a DLP agent registered, but is installed. And your all's platform then took that user's email and goes, I'm creating this Automox worklet with this person's email plugged into it. And then like deployed it on the device and brought the device into scope for that specific DLP agent. Not the most user-friendly start to a DLP agent, but your all's product really bridged that gap, and it brought us from like, God, Jason was yelling at me there were like 62% of our devices were not like registered with it, and you all brought it up to like 97 within a week, and it was like, that's insane. So it kicked the pretty happy. Yeah,
it's funny that you mentioned that because was really the primary reason we named this product Amplifier is we could amplify the effectiveness of any tool that you have, whether it's Automox, whether it's a SIEM or any other tools. And there's just a lot of cool reasons, people will say like, I don't want to talk to people, but I think people would rather you talk to them before removing an application that they're using than just removing an app. So for Jason, what does it mean for Amplifier to be the system of record for human risk data?
When you have data that's trapped in silos, it reduces your insight and context, right? Our job in security is, to detect anomalies and determine whether or not they're malicious. And if they are, then deal with that maliciousness. Having your human risk data that's mapped from all of our security tools into a single place, that's critical. Right. We can break that down by individual employees now, or look at aggregated risk across departments or types of things like technical roles versus like go-to-market roles. And that's really powerful, right? It allows us to get situational awareness much faster, and then we can make better decisions on what interventions should be assigned to employees and produce the outcome we want, right? It's that ability to sort of customize and tune and figure out what is most likely to resonate with them. Because, like you two were just saying, it's not that they're trying to fight us, right? So, finding a way to resonate with them and work with them, that's best for you. It's best for them.
As a CISO, we go talk to departmental leaders, and they almost assume that we're just coming to slap their wrist. But being able to show leaders, right, this is how you're doing compared to other departments, gives them context and can drive a lot of urgency. Because if they see like, hey, we're measuring departmental risk, oh, this department is we're a 60 and everybody else is a 90, right? Department leaders are usually a little competitive, and to see that, it kind of tries to flip the script. They come to me and say like, I don't want my department to be the lowest, right?
And I want to brag if I'm the highest.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
And we, I always put that kind of department management into a board slide, and that really makes it easy, right? Because as soon as they know the board meeting's coming up, they're all coming to me. How do I get to the top of that list? We'll wrap it up here, but Ryan, from Automox's viewpoint, what is the main benefit of having a solution like Amplifier map vulnerability to data human risk? And as a follow-up on that, what is your favorite Amplifier feature?
Yeah, as somebody who has tried out plenty of chasm tools to like just find ways to get new amounts of data like brought in, URLs comes pre-configured. If you ask anybody like who has like worked with like a lot of like chasm tools before, a lot of times there's a ton of data in there, and it's not always standardized out of the box. Sometimes it takes entire teams, entire months to get that set up. With URLs, we deployed it, connected it to the relevant data points. Since it was very endpoint and user centric, it was just great for that. And so it allowed us to see where our like privileged users were, like at a glance on a dashboard, and it really helps us prioritize things, whenever we see that type of data. Especially like it's also great to have like that kind of like point of like click and view like during an incident, like who's got this device. Then like it's nice because it helps you create a conversation with the user itself, but also it's nice to kick off an engagement and have the bot at least do a little of the prep work, and someone can come to me and say, this thing's trying to patch something, like I need to keep this specific version right now because we're working with something in like a different environment around this. It gives them the opportunity to talk to us and have a relevant conversation about why their device is doing what they're doing and why they're doing what they're doing on the device.
I love the mapping of the data answer. We built a data graph underneath the hood of Amplifier, and it was very difficult to be able to figure out which devices were which mapped to which users, and sort that all out accurately across every single integration that we have. And that's out of the box without the user. Just it's a 3-click installation.
Yeah,
we're leveraging that data graph for other functionality. Well, I really appreciate the time and the insights. Love having you guys as a customer, and appreciate everything that y'all done for us. And thank you for coming to the webinar.
yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. Thanks so much.